Hello and welcome to this virtual walking tour as part of ULI's Environmental, Social and Governance Symposium. I'm Linda Weichel, Principal of Weichel Consulting, Impact Advisory Services, and I'll be your guide for this tour. At this stop, we'll be learning about Waterfront Toronto and particularly about its governance, and I'll be interviewing George Zagaric, who is President and Chief Executive Officer. If you haven't been down to the waterfront, I certainly encourage you to do so, but it's the public advocate and steward of Toronto's waterfront revitalization. 20 years ago now, it was created by the governments of Canada and Ontario and the City of Toronto with a mandate to transform Toronto's waterfront by creating extraordinary places to live, work, learn, and play. Welcome, George.
Thank you, Linda.
So I know that there is so much to tell us, but if you could briefly describe what people would see along the waterfront if they were there, and then we'll get on to the governance.
Yeah, well, I think, what I would recommend for our viewers is that they take a look at our annual report and our 5-year plan, because that'll show what it looked like 20 years ago, which was some abandoned industrial lands, and what it is like today, which is a revitalized waterfront with 5 kilometers of bike paths, 23 kilometers of walking paths. We've got 6,000 units of residential units, of which we have a mandate to do 20% affordable housing. So at the end, when we take you for that walk, you'll see we have, about 1,000 affordable housing units that'll be available. We are also, you'll see a number of parks, 9 permanent art installations, but you will also see deep into those buildings, you won't see, but you will hear that, we have some environmentally leading buildings. So we had earlier mandated at least a LEED Gold for any of the development, which was, a bit unheard of early on. Now we have LEED Platinum buildings that are on the waterfront. So we've got, not only do we have livable space, it's environmentally sensitive. You will have seen on a previous tour the Sherburne Common, which we've integrated some great artwork and public realm space with stormwater treatment. So that's what you're going to see. You're going to see a complete community that deals with social issues, deals with environmental issues, and creates economic development opportunities down here on the waterfront. So I think if you look at what we were 20 years ago, I think you'd be impressed, and I'm hoping we'd be even more impressed 20 years from now.
That's fantastic, George. And you've accomplished all this, or Waterfront Toronto has accomplished this through a very interesting model of government, industry, and impact coming together. And I wonder if you could briefly explain the Waterfront Toronto model.
Yeah, so Linda, I'm not sure that all the viewers will be familiar with the history to Waterfront Toronto. So we actually came out of, like many jurisdictions that have revitalized, we came out of a failed Olympic bid. And what that bid did do, though, it provided a vision for the waterfront, and it convinced governments that they were better off working together than working in isolation. So they had agreed with the leadership of David Crombie at the time, with the commission, and then with Bob Fung and John Campbell, who was the first CEO, to create this agency, an independent agency, but has representation, appointments from 3 different levels of government. So there's 4 appointments for each level, and the chair is appointed by all 3 levels. So you've got 13 members working independently and trying to create a long-term vision. And I think that's the important part, is these are not just short-term solutions that fit a 4-year political cycle, is having a vision that addresses, the issues that are not easily addressed in 4 years, whether it's climate change, whether it's dealing with equity, diversity, inclusion, whether it's dealing with affordable housing. I think governments realized back then, and it's probably even more relevant now, that it's no one government and no developer can solve these issues on their own. So that was a unique model that has brought funding, to and a vision to the development of the waterfront.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And if you could think amidst that 20-year span, or perhaps current day, what would you say is a noteworthy environmental or social success and challenge of Waterfront Toronto? And let's start with the success.
Well, as I said, I think we've got a lot of successes. If you look at our results, we report them each year. We've got lots of public space in terms of, we got 43 hectares of public space and parks. We have, the walking trails I talked about, the bike trails, thousands of units for residential units, affordable housing. All these issues and the climate change, we're driving the climate change agenda to become even more aggressive in the future. We just announced some new building standards that would take us even further past the platinum, looking at energy conservation, water conservation, and then building construction. So I think those were successful. The other successes, we brought transit down to the waterfront. But I would also say that that's going to be the challenges. Each one of those are a good start, but affordable housing has not gone away. It's a bigger issue now. The pandemic has proven that we need more public space. Everybody gravitated to the waterfront during this pandemic. We've realized in a big city, you need public space. We looked at environmental. We have to deal with higher water levels and changing climate. When I was Deputy Minister of Infrastructure, we, had a 10-year plan trying to look at climate change as one of the big issues. Insurance companies are no longer, insuring a lot of developments for flood insurance. These are real issues that were relevant 20 years ago and are probably even more relevant today. So I would say the challenge is to keep that vision going and to make sure, that vision continues to be a long-term vision, not a short-term vision, but addresses these bigger social and environmental issues that no one government, no one developer can address on their own.
That's great, George. And as we think about where we're at now and what we've got going on, we're 2 years practically into the pandemic. We're reminded daily about the inequities so many people experience and the extreme weather we're seeing more of. In terms of the real estate industry, which is alive and in some places thriving, how do we harness that future growth? How do we address the challenges that you speak of to ensure a better outcome for everyone? What would be your one message?
Yeah, here's what I would say. I think, first of all, we have to have a collective vision of what we want for the rest of the Portlands as we develop the flood protection project, and we can actually develop the rest of the waterfront lands. And, we have one of the big strengths we've had here is we're probably one of the most engaging agencies in terms of public consultations. We need to make sure the public understands what needs we're fulfilling from a social responsibility area, whether it's affordable housing. 20% was probably okay 20 years ago. As the city has pointed out, they have a 30% threshold now. We're going to have to look at that. But even with regards to some of the changes, when I take people through the walk, they will see the Heinz Tridel has introduced some platinum buildings. We didn't require platinum. We required gold. I think companies are starting to realize public demand, public expectations are going to have to drive them to platinum and beyond. So I think, we need to help facilitate private development, but we need to lead the way with regards to what the expectation of that development is. And I think that's where the vision and some of the infrastructure funding and some of the incentive funding will help develop that properties for decades to come.
And I like your point about public expectation and community expectation. That's a big driver for developers and those who want to partner with you.
Yeah, and those voices need to continue to be heard. And we are very fortunate. Being a tri-government agency, we engage with the public in many different forums. And we're probably the most accountable. We have, I think we've had over 70 audits through 3 levels of government over the 20 years. So I think the public has trust in the agency, and that's very important.
Okay, well, on that optimistic and uplifting note, George, thank you for being with us today. And we wish you a great day, and we wish everyone a great time on the waterfront.
Thank you, Linda, and I wish the best for all the participants. Thank you.